The stars stretched endlessly before the horizon's promise. As it approached Viridian Prime, Captain Dayhine stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the enormous space station grow larger on the view screen. This was humanity's moment. After decades of reaching toward the stars, after finally cracking faster-than-light travel, Earth had found others out here, and now they would join them as equals. "We're receiving docking instructions, sir," said Hyen from the communications station. The young officer's voice carried excitement that matched what everyone aboard felt. Ambassador Jiwoo entered the bridge, her formal diplomatic robes flowing behind her. She had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, learning what little humanity knew about the Galactic Federation. 12 species, 3,000 years of peace, countless worlds living in harmony. Earth would be the 13th. "How do I look?" she asked, managing a nervous smile. "Like someone who's about to make history," Dayhine replied. The docking process took an hour. When the airlock finally opened, Jiwoo led a delegation of 10 humans into the Federation station. The corridor beyond was massive, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Creatures walked past that defied imagination. Some flew on membranous wings. Others slithered or rolled. One being seemed to be made entirely of crystalline structures that chimed softly as it moved. A tall, blue-skinned alien approached them. Its 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I am Velthar, assigned as your escort. The Council will see you in 1 rotation." "Thank you, Gu," said bowing slightly. She had practiced that bow 1,000 times. Velthar led them through the station without another word. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed. Others made sounds that the translation devices couldn't interpret. None seemed friendly. The waiting room was comfortable but sterile. For 6 hours, the human delegation sat in silence, reviewing their presentation one more time. They had brought gifts, samples of Earth's art and music, complete historical records, and offers of trade. Jiwoo had prepared a speech about humanity's desire for peace and cooperation. Finally, they were summoned to the council chamber. The room was circular and vast, with 12 elevated platforms arranged in a ring. On each platform sat a different species, the leaders of the Federation. At the center was a speaking floor where Jiwoo would make Earth's case. She walked forward alone, as protocol demanded. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "Honored members of the Galactic Federation, I come before you representing the people of Earth and all human colonies. We have traveled far to meet you, guided by hope and curiosity. We wish to join your Federation, to share in the peace you have built, and to contribute what we can to the greater galactic community." She activated the holographic display, showing Earth's blue oceans and green continents. Then came humanity's achievements, art, literature, and scientific discoveries. She spoke about Earth's journey from conflict to unity. It's how humans had set aside their differences to reach for the stars together. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. Then one of the council members spoke, its voice like grinding rocks. "We have reviewed your historical records. Your species has engaged in over 15,000 documented wars. You have created weapons capable of destroying your own world. Your history is written in blood." Another council member, this one resembling a massive insect, clicked its mandibles. "You achieved nuclear fission and immediately used it to kill 200,000 of your own kind? What would you do with Federation technology?" Jiwoo felt ice in her stomach, but pressed on. "Yes, we have a violent past. But we learned from it. We grew beyond it. For the last 100 years, humanity has been united and peaceful. We have evolved." "Evolution takes millions of years," said a floating jellyfish-like being. "You have had mere decades. Your violence is not history. It is your nature." The debate continued for hours. Jiwoo answered every question, addressed every concern. She explained Earth's laws, its democratic systems, its commitment to peace. But the council had already made up their minds. She could see it in their body language, the way they looked at her like something dangerous. When the vote came, it was unanimous. 12 voices, 12 rejections. The Galactic Federation declines Earth's application for membership announced the council speaker. Furthermore, a quarantine zone is hereby established around your system. Human vessels are restricted to the Sol system and its immediate surroundings. Any attempt to expand beyond these boundaries will be met with force. But why? GOE's composure finally cracked. We came in peace. We offer friendship. Your offer is noted and refused, the speaker said. This council session is concluded. Velthor escorted them back to their ship without meeting their eyes. The walk through the station felt different now. The stares from other aliens weren't curious anymore. They were contemptuous. Back aboard the Horizon's Promise, Ji-Woo sat in her quarters with her head in her hands. She had failed. Worse, she had led humanity to a door that had been slammed in their face. Daehyun found her there an hour before departure. "It's not your fault," he said. "Should have said something different. Found better arguments. No argument would have mattered. They judged us before we arrived." He handed her a data pad. Hyen intercepted some communications. "The Federation isn't just afraid of us. They're disgusted by us. They see us as barbaric animals that learn to build starships." Ji-Woo read the translations, each one worse than the last. Terms like primates and warmongers and infection appeared over and over. "There's more," Daehyun said grimly. "The quarantine includes military patrols. They're sending warships to blockade our system. They're imprisoning us. That's exactly what they're doing." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Ji-Woo spent most of it writing her report to the Planetary Council. She tried to find hope in her words, some path forward, but there wasn't one. The Federation had spoken. Humanity was alone. When the Horizon's Promise entered Earth orbit, every screen on the planet was tuned in. Billions of people waited to hear about humanity's grand debut on the galactic stage. Instead, they learned about rejection, about quarantine, about alien species that saw them as nothing more than violent primitives unworthy of respect. Admiral Taejong watched the broadcast from Defense Headquarters. He was an old soldier who had fought in the last wars before unification. While others had celebrated humanity's century of peace, he had maintained Earth's military, knowing that peace was only possible through strength. The Federation had just proved him right. He pulled up star charts of the Sol system and began marking positions. If the Federation was sending warships, Earth would need to be ready. They had 50 combat vessels built for patrol duty and anti-piracy operations. Nothing compared to what was coming. But Taeyong had learned something during his years in uniform. The strong don't always win. Sometimes the desperate, the clever, the ones with everything to lose, they find ways to survive. They adapt. They innovate. He opened a secure channel to Earth's research facilities. "This is Admiral Taeyong. I need to speak with the weapons development teams. All of them. Tell them to bring every experimental project they have. I don't care how crazy it sounds." On Viridian Prime, Velthor filed his report about the human delegation. He noted their emotional responses, their attempts at persuasion, their ultimate failure. Then he added a personal observation, one that made him uncomfortable. The humans had looked at the council with hope, and when that hope was destroyed, something else had replaced it in their eyes. Not despair, not acceptance. Something harder, something dangerous. Velthor deleted that observation before submitting his report. It was probably nothing. Humans were primitives playing with technology they barely understood. The quarantine would contain them. In a generation or two, they would accept their place in the galaxy. He had no way of knowing how wrong he was. 6 months after the rejection, Lieutenant Minesio flew patrol along the edge of the quarantine zone. Her fighter was small and fast, designed for reconnaissance. Through her cockpit window, she could see them, the Federation warships, holding position just beyond the boundary. Massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had built. They sat there like watchdogs, silent and threatening. "Contact on sensors," her co-pilot reported. "Civilian freighter, Earth registration. Looks like they're making a run for it." Minesio watched the freighter accelerate past the quarantine line. It was the Morning Star, a merchant vessel carrying trade goods. The captain had probably decided that commerce was worth the risk. He was wrong. The Federation warship moved with terrible efficiency. One moment the freighter was there, engines burning bright. The next moment, it was debris spreading across the void. No warning, no communication. Just instant death for 17 crew members whose only crime was trying to make a living. "Mark the location," Minesio said quietly. "Recovery teams will want to retrieve what they can." This was the third ship destroyed this month. The Federation had made their policy clear. No one leaves. No one enters. Earth was a prison, and the bars were made of laser fire and missile batteries. Back on Earth, Premier Jae-soon stood in the emergency council chamber, surrounded by representatives from every nation and colony. The room hummed with angry voices, all demanding action. "They're killing civilians," shouted one representative. "We need to respond." "With what?" Another replied. "They have 300 warships in our space. We have 50. The math isn't complicated." Jae-soon raised his hand for silence. He was a former engineer who had never wanted to be in politics, but the people had chosen him because he solved problems. This was the biggest problem humanity had ever faced. "We have two options," he said. "We can surrender, accept Federation rule, and hope they treat us well. Or we can fight." "Fight with what?" someone asked. "We're outgunned, outmanned, and outclassed." Admiral Taeyang stood up. He had been silent until now, letting the politicians argue. "We fight with what we have, and we build what we need. The Federation thinks we're primitives. We use that against them." A new voice spoke up. It was Commander Song-hoon, head of intelligence. "I have information the Council needs to hear. The real reason for this blockade isn't our violent history. It's what's under our feet." He activated a holographic display showing mineral scans of Earth and its colonies. One element was highlighted, glowing red across multiple locations. "Element 47," Sang-hoon continued. "The Federation calls it crystalline thorium. It's the foundation of their faster-than-light drives, their power systems, their technology. Earth has the largest deposit of it ever discovered, more than all 12 Federation homeworlds combined." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "They never intended to accept us," Jae-soon said slowly. "This was always about resources, correct? I intercepted communications between Velthor and the Federation Council. They plan to declare Earth a protected world within 3 months, which means they take control of everything. We become servants in our own system, mining Element 47 for our new masters." "Then we have no choice," Jae-soon said. He looked around the room at faces filled with fear and anger. "We resist. We vote." The vote was unanimous. 57 nations and 12 colonies, all agreeing on one thing. Humanity would not bow. They would fight, even if the odds were impossible. Admiral Taeyang wasted no time. Within days, he had transformed Earth's military from a peacekeeping force into something harder. Every ship was retrofitted with new weapons. Every pilot trained for combat. Every soldier prepared for war. In a secret facility beneath the Gobi Desert. Engineer Borum worked 18-hour days on projects that had been theoretical until now. Mass drivers that could launch projectiles at relativistic speeds. Asteroid mines that could be weaponized. Stealth technology borrowed from submarine warfare. None of it was elegant. None of it was as advanced as Federation tech. But it would hurt them. "Will it be enough?" her assistant asked, watching another test of the mass driver. "Probably not," Bjorn admitted. "But it'll make them bleed. And maybe that's enough." The Federation ultimatum arrived exactly 3 months after the blockade began. Velthor delivered it personally, his holographic image appearing before the Planetary Council. "The Galactic Federation offers Earth a final opportunity," he said, his 4 eyes showing no emotion. "Accept protected status. Hand over control of your military, your resources, and your government to Federation oversight. You will be allowed to live in peace as a subordinate species." "And if we refuse?" Jae-soon asked, though he already knew. "Then you will be pacified by force. You have 48 hours to decide." The transmission ended. Jae-soon didn't need 48 hours. He didn't need 48 minutes. He looked at Admiral Taeyang and nodded once. The Admiral activated the defense grid. Across the Sol system, military bases went to full alert. Ships launched from Earth, Mars, the Moon, and Europa. 50 vessels against 300. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled, and it wasn't nearly enough. Captain Yunji commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Wing. 12 small ships designed to hide from sensors. She had spent months mapping the Federation blockade, learning their patrol patterns, identifying their command structure. Now that information would be used. "All ships report ready," her second officer said. "Then let's give them an answer, they'll understand." Yunji replied. The Federation fleet detected Earth's mobilization immediately. Velthor sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Eternal Justice. Watching his tactical display fill with red markers representing human ships, "They're actually going to fight," his tactical officer said, surprise evident in his voice. "Then we will show them why the Federation has maintained peace for 3,000 years, Velthor said. "All ships, combat formation. Prepare to advance." 300 warships began moving toward Earth's inner system, their weapons charged, their shields activated. This would be over quickly. The humans had courage. Velthor admitted that. But courage meant nothing against superior firepower. On Earth, people gathered in streets and homes, watching the skies. They knew what was coming. Some prayed. Some cried. Some simply held their loved ones close. But no one ran. There was nowhere to run to. Admiral Taeyong stood in the command center, surrounded by tactical displays and communication screens. He had fought in wars before, but never like this. Never against an enemy this powerful. Never with stakes this high. "Sir, Federation fleet will be in weapons range in 20 minutes, an officer reported. 20 minutes until humanity's first real battle against alien invaders. 20 minutes to prove they were more than primitives. 20 minutes to show the Federation that some cages can't hold predators. "Signal all ships," Taeyong said calmly. "Execute Operation Ghost Protocol. Let's teach these bastards why humans survived when bigger. Stronger species went extinct across the system. Earth's ships scattered, breaking formation, diving into asteroid fields and behind planetary bodies. The Federation fleet continued its advance, expecting a conventional battle. They would get something else entirely. Menesio sat in her fighter's cockpit, hands steady on the controls. Her squadron was hidden in Saturn's rings, waiting. The massive Federation ships passed by, their sensors focused forward. They never looked down. Now came the command. Her fighter burst from the rings, mass driver charging. It was David versus Goliath. A tiny ship against a massive warship. But David had one before. The projectile launched at a fraction of light speed. It punched through the Federation ship's shields like they weren't there, tore through armor and hull and exploded inside. The warship's reactor went critical, and suddenly there was a new sun in Saturn's orbit. "First blood," Menesio whispered. Across the system, similar attacks erupted. Earth's forces weren't fighting fair. They were fighting to survive. And in that moment, the Federation learned something important about humanity. They should have stayed away. The Battle of Jupiter's moons lasted 16 hours. When it ended, 23 Federation warships were destroyed or crippled. Earth lost 17 vessels. By any mathematical calculation, the Federation should have been celebrating a victory. Instead, Velthor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He demanded, "How did primitives destroy 23 of our ships?" His tactical officer pulled up battle recordings. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered. No formations, no honor, no rules. They hide in asteroid fields and ambush our patrols. They strap explosives to chunks of ice and let them drift into our formations. They sacrifice their own ships to take out ours." On the screen, a human vessel rammed a Federation cruiser, both ships exploding in a ball of plasma. The human crew had known they would die. They had done it anyway. "They're insane," Velthor said. "Oh no, sir. They're desperate, and that makes them dangerous." Velthor composed his report to the Federation Council with hands that shook slightly. He had led fleets for 40 years, faced down pirates and rebels, maintained order across a dozen systems. But this was different. This was supposed to be easy. On Earth, Admiral Taeyang reviewed casualty reports. 314 dead. 800 wounded. Numbers that would have seemed catastrophic a year ago. Now they were just the price of survival. "We hurt them," said Captain Yoonji, her face appearing on his communication screen. Her stealth wing had survived intact, something of a miracle. "But they're still coming. We need something bigger." Biram says she has something. She's calling it Project Hellfire. In the Gobi facility, Engineer Bioram stood before a room full of officers and scientists. Behind her was a holographic display showing something that looked like a massive metal spear. "This is a kinetic kill vehicle," she explained. "Basically a tungsten rod 5 meters long, half a meter wide. We accelerate it to 15% light speed using a mass driver system built into Luna's surface. At that velocity, it carries more energy than a nuclear weapon. And it's completely undetectable until impact." "How many can you build?" Taeyang asked. "We've already built 30. We can make more, but each one takes a week." "How do we aim them?" Bioram smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That's where Captain Yunji comes in. Her recon ships mark targets. We fire. The Federation never sees it coming. "There's a problem," said Commander Sang-hoon. He had been analyzing Federation fleet movements. "They're changing tactics. Pulling back from aggressive advances, setting up defensive positions." Velter learned from Jupiter, "He won't give us easy targets anymore, and we make targets," Taeyang said. "Yeonji, how close can you get to the Federation flagship?" The captain's eyes widened. "You want to kill Velthar?" "I want to scare him. Show the Federation that nowhere is safe. If we can put a targeting laser on his flagship, we can threaten any ship in their fleet." It took 3 weeks to set up Operation Hellfire. 3 weeks of carefully moving stealth ships into position, of calculating trajectories, of waiting for the perfect moment. The Federation fleet settled into a blockade formation around Earth, confident in their defensive positions. Yoonji's ship, the Silent Wind, drifted like debris among the outer defense perimeter. Her crew had spent 2 days playing dead, life support at minimum, emissions nearly zero. Federation patrols passed within a few kilometers without detecting them. "Target acquired," her weapons officer whispered, as if the Federation could hear them. The flagship Eternal Justice sat in the center of the formation, surrounded by its escorts. "Painting target now," Yunji said, activating the laser designator. A thin beam, invisible to sensors, touched the Federation flagship. On Luna, Bioram received the signal. "Target locked. Firing." The mass driver launched its payload. The tungsten rod accelerated down a 10-kilometer electromagnetic tunnel, emerging at 15% light speed. It covered the distance to the Federation fleet in 97 seconds. Velthor was reviewing supply reports when his ship died. The kinetic kill vehicle hit amidships, punched through 12 decks, and released its energy deep in the vessel's core. The Eternal Justice broke in half, atmosphere venting, systems failing, crew dying. Veltor found himself in an escape pod, watching his flagship come apart. Around him, his fleet panicked. Ships scattered, breaking formation. Sure where the attack had come from, or if more were coming. On the Silent Wind, Youngji smiled grimly. Target destroyed. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Her ship's engines fired. They disappeared into the darkness before the Federation could respond. The attack changed everything. The Federation Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 3,000 years, one of their fleets had been routed. Not just defeated, but terrified into retreat. "We underestimated them," admitted Council Speaker Theldros. He was one of the older members, having served for over a century. "These humans fight without honor, without rules, without mercy." "They fight like cornered animals," another council member said, "because that's what they are." But one voice disagreed. It belonged to Kroven, a young Federation officer who had witnessed the Battle of Jupiter's moons firsthand. He had been given permission to address the council, a rare honor. "They don't fight like animals," Kroven said carefully. "They fight like soldiers protecting their home. Everything they've done, we would do in their position. We just never had to because we were always the stronger power." "Are you defending them?" Theldros asked, his tone dangerous. I'm trying to understand them. Sir, I've reviewed their battle tactics. They're not random or savage. They're brilliant. They took our measure at Jupiter, identified our weaknesses, and exploited them. The kinetic strike on the flagship required mathematics and coordination we considered them incapable of. Your point? My point is that we're not fighting primitives. We're fighting an intelligent, determined species that won't surrender. And if we continue this war, the casualties will be unacceptable. The Council dismissed Croven's concerns. They authorized a new fleet, 500 ships this time, and a new commander. Velthor had been demoted after losing his flagship. The new commander was Admiral Zethmar. Famous for crushing rebellions with overwhelming force, the humans will learn, Zethmar announced. That resistance is futile. On Earth, Wujin trained his marines for ground combat. The Federation fleet still held orbital superiority. Eventually, they would try to land troops. When they did, they would find that humans were even more dangerous on the ground than in space. His soldiers were equipped with weapons designed for guerrilla warfare. Nothing sophisticated, just effective. Explosives hidden in civilian areas. Sniper positions in ruined buildings. Traps that used Federation technology against itself. "Will outnumber us," one young Marine said during training. Probably, Wu Jin agreed. They'll have better armor, better weapons, better everything. But they've never fought on Earth. This is our world. We know every street, every building, every hiding place, and we'll fight for every centimeter of it. Dr. Haywon worked in a hospital beneath Geneva, treating the wounded from the space battles. Burns from plasma weapons, decompression injuries, radiation sickness. The war's costs measured in broken bodies and traumatized minds. She had been a civilian physician before the war, specializing in pediatrics. Now she amputated limbs and held dying soldiers' hands. The work was endless and heartbreaking. "Will we win?" a young pilot asked her. He had lost both legs when his fighter was hit. Haywon didn't know how to answer. "We're still fighting," she finally said. "As long as we're still fighting, there's hope." But privately, she wondered. The casualties kept coming. The Federation kept coming. How long could humanity endure? Admiral Taeyang wondered the same thing. They had won battles, but not the war. The Federation had resources humanity couldn't match. Eventually, the numbers would matter. He reviewed intelligence reports from Commander Sang-hoon. The new Federation fleet was assembling at Viridian Prime. 500 ships. Twice what they had sent before. Earth's fleet was down to 38 functional vessels. "We can't win a direct fight," Sang-hoon said. "Not anymore. Then we don't fight directly," Taeyan replied. "We make it too expensive for them to continue. Every ship they lose is a political problem back home. Every casualty makes their people question this war. Guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale." Exactly. "We hit their supply lines. Ambush their patrols. Make them bleed until their own people demand peace." It was a desperate strategy. But desperation was something humans understood well. In orbit above Earth, Minesio flew patrol in a fighter held together mostly by hope and welding. She looked down at her homeworld, so beautiful from up here, so fragile. "We're going to protect you," she whispered to the planet below. Whatever it takes, the Federation fleet was coming. 500 ships against 38. The math said humanity should surrender. But humans had never been good at math when survival was on the line. Mars fell on a Tuesday. Admiral Zethmar's fleet bypassed Earth's defenders and struck the red planet with overwhelming force. The small garrison fought for 8 hours before being crushed. 30,000 human colonists found themselves under. Federation Occupation Commander Kung Su watched from a hidden bunker as Federation. Troops marched through New Seoul streets. The aliens moved with confidence, their powered armor gleaming, their weapons carried casually. They expected no resistance from civilians. They were wrong. Kyung-dash-soo had been a construction engineer before the war. He knew every tunnel, every sealed-off section, every weakness in Mars dome cities. Now he led a resistance movement of 200 civilians armed with mining explosives. Stolen weapons and rage. They're setting up a command post in the Civic Center, his second. A woman named Yoon-ji reported. She had been a teacher once. Now she built bombs, and we welcomed them properly, Kung-soo said. That night, the Civic Center exploded. 40 Federation soldiers died. The message was clear. Mars would not submit quietly. On Earth, Ambassador Gi-woo worked desperately to find allies. She sent messages to every non-Federation species she could identify, begging for support, offering trade agreements, sharing intelligence. Most ignored her. A few responded with sympathy, but no action. Then she received an unexpected reply from the Talonari, a minor species that operated independent trade routes. Their representatives, speaking through heavily encrypted channels, offered information. The Federation is not united on this war, the Talonari said. 3 member species voted against the invasion. 2 more abstained. If casualties continue rising, that opposition will grow. Can you help us? Ji-woo asked. We can spread the truth about why this war started. Element 47 and greed, not human aggression. Public opinion matters, even in the Federation. But you must survive long enough for it to matter.
Ow.
It was something. Not much, but something. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Tae-yong launched Operation Hellfire in earnest. Over 3 months, 30 kinetic strikes hit Federation targets across 4 systems. Supply depots, shipyards, communications relays. Each strike traveled too fast to intercept, too small to detect until impact. The Federation had superior technology, but they couldn't defend against projectiles launched from light minutes away, traveling at relativistic speeds. Their shields meant nothing. Their point defense systems couldn't track something moving that fast. Admiral Zethmar tried to counter by spreading his fleet, making targets harder to find. But spreading his forces made them vulnerable to Earth's hit-and-run attacks. He was trapped in a dilemma with no good solution. Captain Daehain, promoted after the Battle of Jupiter, led a mission that would become legend. Intelligence indicated the Federation's primary shipyard was lightly defended, most of the fleet being deployed at Earth. The yard was building the next generation of warships, vessels designed specifically to counter human tactics. It's suicide, said his first officer, when Daehain briefed the crew of the Determined. Probably, Daehain agreed, but if those ships get built, the war is over. We lose, he asked for volunteers. Every member of his crew stepped forward. The Determined traveled through 7 different systems, using every trick humanity had learned. They disguised themselves as a damaged freighter. They hid in comet tails. They drifted on ballistic courses with engines cold. It took 3 weeks to reach the shipyard. When they arrived, they found it exactly as intelligence predicted. 15 massive construction docks, each building a new Federation warship. A small security force of 20 ships. The Federation had grown complacent this far from the front lines. All weapons armed, Daehain said calmly. Set the reactor to overload on my command. Send our final messages home. The Determined dropped its disguise and accelerated straight toward the construction docks. The security force scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Daehain's ship smashed through defense satellites, weathered point defense fire, and rammed directly into the central dock. The reactor overload was carefully calculated, not just to destroy his ship, but to create a chain reaction through the connected docks. The explosion lit up space for hundreds of kilometers. When it faded, the Federation's shipyard was gone. 15 new warships destroyed before they could launch. 20 security vessels caught in the blast, and the Determined, with all 237 crew members, including Captain Dae-Hyun, the news reached Earth 3 days later. Premier Jae-sung stood before the Planetary Council and read the names of the dead. All of them. It took an hour. They gave their lives, he said when he finished, so that we might keep ours. Remember them, honor them, and finish what they started. Daehain became a martyr, his name spoken with reverence. Across human space, recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. The death of the Determined didn't break humanity's spirit. It hardened it into steel, but the cost kept rising. Dr. Haewon's hospital ran out of beds, then out of floor space, then out of supplies. She performed surgeries with whatever she had, trying to save lives with inadequate equipment and sheer determination. One night, she sat in an empty corridor, covered in blood that wasn't hers, and cried. A young nurse named Suben found her there. Doctor, are you okay? No, Heywan said honestly. I'm not. I'm exhausted and terrified, and I don't know if any of this matters. We saved them so they can go back out and die fighting. Subin sat beside her. My brother died at Jupiter. His ship was the one that rammed the Federation cruiser. Before he left for that mission, he told me something. He said we're not fighting to win. We're fighting so that when humans are remembered, we're remembered as people who stood up. People who refused to kneel. Is that enough? I don't know, but it's all we have. On Mars, Kyungsu's resistance had grown to 3,000 fighters. They controlled the underground tunnels and made life hell for the occupation forces. Every patrol faced ambushes. Every supply convoy was attacked. Every Federation base was under constant threat. The occupiers responded with brutality. They executed suspected resistance members. They imposed curfews and rationed food. But every act of oppression created 10 new resistance fighters. EUNG planned the largest operation yet, targeting the Federation's main garrison. We have enough explosives to collapse the entire sector, she told Kangsu. But the civilian casualties will be high. Our own people? How many live in that sector? 8,000. The Federation is using them as human shields, keeping their headquarters right in the civilian center. Kangsu faced an impossible choice. Save 8,000 now, or save Mars by breaking the occupation? He thought about what Captain Daehyun had done. Sacrifice for the greater good. We do it, he decided. But we warn everyone first. Give them a chance to evacuate. They spread the word through underground networks. 6,000 civilians managed to escape before the bombs went off. 2,000 didn't make it. The garrison was destroyed, along with 1,200 Federation soldiers and 2,000 innocent humans. Kangsu visited the survivors in the tunnels afterward. They looked at him with hatred and fear. He didn't blame them. He hated himself too. I'm sorry, was all he could say. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But the operation worked. The Federation pulled back, consolidating their forces, afraid of more attacks. Mars wasn't liberated, but it wasn't pacified either. In space, Sora worked her diplomatic channels tirelessly. The Talonari had been true to their word, spreading information about the real reasons for the war. Public opinion in Federation space began shifting. Not much, but enough to matter. 2 Federation member species formally protested the war. 3 more reduced their military contributions. Cracks appeared in the coalition that had seemed unbreakable. Admiral Tae-young saw the shift in intelligence reports. We're hurting them, he told his staff. Not just militarily, politically, economically. This war is becoming unpopular. Is it enough? Someone asked. Not yet. But it might be. If we can hold out long enough. Commander Sung-hoon had been working on something secret, a project he brought to Taeyong in a sealed briefcase. Inside were data chips containing intelligence from an unexpected source. These came from a Federation officer named Kroven, Sung-hoon explained. He's been feeding us information for months. Fleet movements, supply routes, political divisions. He's risking execution by doing this. Why would he help us? He believes the war is wrong. He's not alone. There's a growing peace movement in the Federation, but they need time to build support. We're running out of time. Zethmar is preparing another offensive. I know. But Kroven sent something else. Proof that the Federation Council lied about the reasons for war. Internal communications showing they knew about Element 47 before first contact. That they planned the quarantine and invasion from the beginning. Taeyang looked at the data. This could change everything. Get it to Sora. She'll know what to do with it. Right. The war ground on. Humans died in space and on occupied worlds. The Federation paid in blood and treasure. Both sides were exhausted, but neither could stop. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the outcome hung in balance, waiting to see which side would break first. 18 months after the war began, Admiral Taeyong stood before a holographic star map showing the Federation's territory. Red markers indicated human attacks over the past year. There were hundreds of them, spreading like a disease across Federation space. "We've hit them in 73 systems," Commander Sang-hoon reported. "Supply lines are disrupted. Trade routes are considered unsafe. Insurance costs for shipping have tripled. Member species are questioning the war's economic cost." "But we're dying," Taeyong said quietly. Earth's fleet was down to 22 ships. The reserves were exhausted. Every pilot was flying on stimulants and determination alone. "We can't sustain this much longer. Neither can they. Our sources say 5 member species are threatening to leave the Federation. The peace movement is growing. We just need one more push. Something dramatic enough to force negotiations." Taeyong studied the map, his eyes settling on one particular point. Viridian Prime, the Federation capital, the seat of the Council, the heart of the beast. "Get me Captain Yoonji," he said. The plan was insane. Take the surviving ships, along with every fighter that could still fly, and jump directly to Viridian Prime. Not to invade, not to destroy, but to appear. To demonstrate that the Federation capital itself was vulnerable. To prove that nowhere was safe, Captain Yoonji led the mission planning. "We'll use every decoy, every trick we've learned. Make them think we have more ships than we do. The jump will exhaust our fuel reserves. It's a one-way trip. Can we pull it off?" Taeyong asked. "Honestly, I give us 30% odds of reaching Viridian Prime, 10% of surviving the return trip." She smiled grimly. "But those are better odds than we've had for months." On Mars, Kyun-soo received the message through encrypted channels. Operation Prometheus was launching. All resistance cells were ordered to create maximum chaos. Drawing Federation forces away from their fleet positions, he gathered his fighters in the tunnels. They numbered 5,000 now, armed with captured weapons and burning with purpose. "The endgame is here," he told them. "Earth is making its move. We need to make sure every Federation soldier on Mars is too busy to help their fleet. Are you ready?" The roar of approval echoed through the tunnels. Sora worked her diplomatic channels frantically. The evidence Krovan had provided was spreading through Federation space. Media outlets were publishing it. Public figures were demanding answers. The Council's lies were exposed. 3 more species have withdrawn military support, the Talinary contact reported. The Federation Council is in crisis. But they're also cornered. Cornered predators are dangerous, and we need to give them a way out, Sora said. A path to peace that saves face. She drafted a proposal working with Premier Jae-sung. Not surrender, but negotiation. Recognition of human sovereignty. Shared access to Element 47 under fair terms. An end to hostilities. It was everything Earth had wanted from the beginning. Send it to every Federation member species, Jae-sung ordered. Not through the Council. Directly to their governments. Let them see we're reasonable. That peace is possible. The pieces were moving. Now came the hardest part. Operation Prometheus launched with 22 warships and 38 fighters. Everything humanity had left. Admiral Taeyong commanded from the Defiant, the largest surviving vessel. Lieutenant Minesio flew beside him, her fighter somehow still intact despite a dozen battles. They jumped through multiple systems, using the routes Krovan had provided. Each jump brought them closer to the Federation capital. Behind them, chaos erupted as resistance cells across occupied territories launched simultaneous attacks. On Mars, Kyung-soo's fighters hit every Federation position at once. Bombs exploded in 3 garrison bases. Ambushes killed patrols. The occupiers found themselves fighting on 100 fronts. The Federation fleet scrambled to respond, pulling ships from their positions to deal with the crisis. Exactly as planned. Viridian Prime was the most heavily defended system in the Federation. 300 warships on permanent guard duty. Defensive platforms. Sensor nets. Nothing had threatened it in 3,000 years. When human ships appeared at the edge of the system, as klaxons wailed across the planet. Council members were evacuated to bunkers. The population panicked. For the first time in their history, the Federation capital faced attack. Admiral Tae Young opened a channel to the entire system. His face appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device on Viridian Prime. I am Admiral Tae Young of Earth. We did not come here to destroy your world. We came to show you that we can. Your fleet is scattered across your territory, chasing our attacks. Your capital is vulnerable. But we are not barbarians. We are not monsters. We are people defending our home. He paused, letting that sink in. For 18 months, we have fought your invasion. We have bled and died and sacrificed everything. Not because we wanted war, but because you gave us no choice. You rejected our diplomacy. You blockaded our world. You tried to enslave us for our resources. We have made you pay for every meter of space you took, and we will continue fighting until you destroy us or acknowledge our sovereignty. The Federation fleet was racing back toward Viridian Prime, but they were hours away. Taeyong's ships held position, weapons armed but not firing. We offer you peace, not surrender. Peace between equals. End this war. Recognize Earth's sovereignty. Share access to Element 47 under fair terms. Or continue fighting, knowing that your own capital is not safe. The choice is yours. On Viridian Prime, the council gathered in their emergency chamber. Speaker Theldros looked older than his centuries. The war had broken something in the Federation's spirit. They had thought themselves invincible. The humans had taught them otherwise. If we negotiate, we show weakness, one council member argued. If we continue, we face rebellion from our own members, another countered. 5 species have already withdrawn support. 3 more are threatening to leave the Federation entirely. This war is destroying us. Croven stood before them, having defected completely to the human cause. He had returned to Viridian Prime as Earth's representative, protected by diplomatic protocols. I have fought humans, he said. I have studied them. They are not the primitives you believe them to be. They are clever, determined, and willing to die for their freedom. You cannot defeat them without destroying yourselves in the process. The debate raged for hours. Outside, human ships waited in orbit, guns loaded, ready to die if necessary. Finally, Theldros raised his hand for silence. We have one question for the human admiral. If we negotiate, if we agree to peace, what guarantee do we have that Earth will honor the agreement? Taeyong responded immediately. The same guarantee we have from you. None. Peace requires trust. Trust requires risk. We're willing to take that risk. Are you? The vote was 8-4 in favor of negotiation. Not unanimous, but enough. Ambassador Giwu found herself back in the council chamber, 18 months after her first rejection. But everything had changed. She didn't come as a supplicant now. She came as an equal, representing a species that had earned respect through blood and fire. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Every word was debated. Every clause examined. Earth demanded sovereignty, access to trade routes, and reparations for the dead. The Federation demanded limits on military expansion and shared control of Element-47. Compromises were made. Concessions granted. In the end, the Treaty of Seoul was signed by both parties. Earth would join the galactic community as an independent sovereign nation. Element 47 would be shared under a jointly administered program with profits split equally. All Federation forces would withdraw from human space. All human attacks on Federation territory would cease. The quarantine would end. Trade would begin. Most importantly, the Federation would publicly acknowledge that the war had been started under false pretenses, and that humanity had the right to defend itself. When Jiwoo returned to Earth, a changed planet awaited her. The war had cost 40,000 human lives. But those lives had bought something precious. Freedom, dignity, recognition, premiere. Jae-sung addressed the planet that night. We did not want this war, but we survived it. We proved that humanity will not be caged, will not be enslaved, will not surrender our freedom for an easier path. Remember those who died. honor their sacrifice, and build the future they fought for. 5 years later, Lieutenant Menesio, now a captain, commanded the flagship Dayan's Legacy. Earth had rebuilt its fleet, incorporating both human innovation and Federation technology acquired through trade. The ship was fast, deadly, crewed by veterans who had learned their trade in the hardest. School, she patrolled trade routes that crossed 3 systems, protecting merchant vessels from pirates and responding to distress calls. Some of those calls came from Federation worlds. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Captain, we were receiving a distress signal from a Talinari colony. Raiders are attacking their mining station. Set course," Menesio ordered. Maximum speed. As the Dayan's Legacy jumped toward the crisis, Menesio thought about how far humanity had come. From rejected supplicants to respected allies, from victims to protectors, the Federation had tried to cage them. Instead, they had unleashed something that changed the galaxy.